Welcome back to Always Almost There, a Goose podcast series on We Move Through Stormy Weather. My name is Kev.
And I'm Brian, a.k.a. Jive Goose.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Danny.
And I'm Neal. The five of us are here today to talk about Goose's 4-show spring run.
Before we jump into talking about the shows, I would like to remind everybody that Always Almost There does have a very fantastic merch store with t-shirts inspired by Straight Burden and Silver Rising right now, with more to come in the future. So check that out if you have not already. Who's ready to talk about some Goose? It's been a little while since the five of us have sat down to talk some Goose together. Very excited.
It's been too long.
Too long, you know. This is Goose's longest break since the beginning of 2021. I believe mission to the New Year's shows was 5 weeks, and this was around 6 weeks. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm usually wrong, but this is their longest break in a while.
I didn't even think about that. That's that's pretty surprising, actually.
Mm-hmm. And so they started the run, a nice 4-show run, as was mentioned, at the Firefly Distillery in Charleston, South Carolina. I just realized on Nugs it says Charleston, North Carolina. But it is South Carolina. Do not be fooled. On the April 28th, first set, Flow Down, Indian River, Caution, Time to Flee, Born, and Dr. Darkness. I think a solid set overall. You had a bit of a shaky start in that Flow Down, some flubs you don't normally see from them, but again, longest break in just over a year, so can be forgiven. The Indian River, I think, is the best one they've played to date. You know, that they took that Delta adjacent jam to a nice extended Blissy place. A little bit out of the norm for sure. Caution was cool. Time to Flee, really solid jam in that. I think we all wished it would have gone on a little bit longer than it ended up being. Born, I think I want to get into this a little bit once we get to the Beale Street show, just talking about the evolution of the arrangement of this song. But this was a solid version. This one, they just cut out any of the synth build or that nice, major key jam and just went right to that back end funk groove, which pretty good here. And then Dr. Darkness to close the set. So, solid, nothing crazy.
Yeah, a little bit of a new intro in that Born also, right?
Yes, they went to more of the album guitar intro versus, Spuds playing the intro on drums like he had been doing recently.
Yeah, which I like. This is one of those cases where I think they're both good. I don't think that it's one is way better than another. I like them both. I like that they mix it up. And with the Flow Down and I don't want to steal Neal's thunder because I think he was the first one that was talking about this in kind of our group chat that night. But that might have been an equipment issue there as well, kind of contributing to getting that one going. So, but I'll leave that for Neal.
String slip.
Yeah.
Slip string.
Slipping.
Yeah, which is like a terrifying thing. Like if you play the guitar, more terrifying, I think, on an acoustic guitar than an electric guitar. But you could definitely he was in tune and then immediately he wasn't. So I'm guessing he just put new strings on his guitar for that tour, right off the bat, and then it just kind of popped out and he ran with it, which was admirable that they just kind of kept going.
Kind of.
Yeah.
He could have got frustrated and then just kind of stepped off and let Peter do a thing or two on keys while he was getting it set straight. But in the end, I don't think it really hurt anything. I think that the tune turned out fine.
Yeah. No, he played it cool. I'm sure he gave Coach an earful after the show or at set break, but he played it cool on stage, so that's cool.
Gave him some guitarist notes.
Indian River, with the
Indian River with
the I was just gonna say with the Delta-ish
Delta adjacent. That's what I've been
jam, and this was a good one. I like it. I like it. I think we talked last time about getting a version that might not have been the most efficient use of the time, but this was good. This one was good. And Caution, love it. I think we all got a little bit of the SOS fake out.
SOS fake out. Yep.
Even
and it
Rick?
has gotten. It had. I thought I'd remembered that happening more than just once, but yeah, I think it was. What was that? OKC.
And
Yes.
Madison, Brown. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
it was
sure.
OKC and Madison.
And
Yep.
Madison, yeah.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like this one was the most, almost like it was on purpose. Like, hey, let's, I'm really going
I
to
think
make
it was
this
the
sound like
best one.
SOS.
It was the best one too. I
The
sort
best
of like
SOS
whoa,
fake out.
the best SOS fake out.
Oh,
I was
Yeah.
convinced.
The goat
I was
fake out.
convinced.
Speaking of SOS, I'm very surprised that didn't get a play on this run. But anyway,
Yeah, I had that in my fantasy a lot.
Me too.
But as a
It's
matter of
coming,
fact,
it's coming.
I didn't pick any songs the first night that ended up being played. So
he
it
great
wasn't just
jive
SOS
Goose. Is that
for
your
me.
first? Is that your first golden goose egg?
Most likely, yeah. It's not data that I've tracked, and in fact, I won't be keeping much track of that night either.
Well, I just made a note.
I'll let you remind me.
I need to make a meme for you, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
There's no egg meme.
Oh man.
Oh, we
Dude,
need that.
definitely needed an egg.
We need
Like
that.
maybe later tonight.
Eggin. Who else has thoughts on this first set?
Yeah, I thought
said.
this set as a whole, I think my opinion of it in the moment wasn't the best. But overall I do think like what I liked about it now and back on re-listen is it has, and as I look at it right now and upon re-listen, like I said, it's got a nice feel of sort of a sunset. Pretty sure this show started pretty early too.
Yes.
I don't if I
Early
recall.
curfew.
Yeah, and so 10 p.m. curfew or something, or a 6 start, 6:30. But anyways, it just had a feel of sort of the sunset. The Time to Flee we've seen sort of open or be early in set one at like Suwannee. They did it last year. I recall Indian River. We were wondering if it was going to be Darkness that followed it. Sure enough, they found it later. Kevin had made a good point that night. That jam is probably one of my actually favorite sort of moments of the night. It's one I'll go back to. I think they find a really nice space after kind of hitting the normal Delta kind of ish arrangement. Yeah, but fun. Overall, nothing really crazy. The Born was maybe just a little awkward in that transitional moment, like we said, without the synth build. But I do like the intro. Sort of it floated in well, I think, in the setting, coming off Flea and kind of quiet with the guitar, and it kind of picks up. So yeah, overall, good first set. I think they're just kind of warming up. So yeah, that's my thought.
I do also I forgot to mention with Born, I believe Peter used that like looping vibraphone thing on the Nord that he used in the Philly This Old Sea.
Oh, that's right.
It would come up a couple more times, I believe, in these few shows. But it's interesting to see him kind of expand the capabilities of that keyboard a little bit and use it in unique ways. 'Cause I think that's not, a looping vibraphone. It's not something you really would expect to hear in a setting like this. So
That's the same thing
cool.
that's in the Cleveland Rockdale, right, Ryan?
That's not him looping it though. So he plays the vibraphone.
He's actually playing it. Gotcha.
Yeah, but this is like an arpeggiator, but with a vibraphone.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting to hear. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that jam that came in the back end of like Indian River. We can call it Welcome to the Delta jam, whatever. But like I mean, to be at this show and to probably be experiencing this probably was like pretty amazing. So they had that like really beautiful kind of blissed out like golden hour jam in the end of Indian River, which like I'll go back and listen to that when I've gone back and listened to it a bunch. And then, after Caution and Flea, they kind of picked up where that jam left off. And there's some really kind of beautiful piano playing from Peter.
Yes.
Lots of gentle bed of piano, if you will.
Very much so.
Many gentles.
I mean, it's really good. I mean, it's not like a Flea that you're going to write home about, but it was a good one. And it's worth listening to. And it has that vibe of the moment, which, I think Daniel was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And then for Born, as awkward as the transition was from like Born the Tune to Born the Jam, it turned into like a really good funk jam, after the thing that everybody wants to kind of call 2001, which is like kind of this brief launch pad into whatever the jam is that Born is. And I thought that was actually one of the more fun jams of the night. Like if I was there and I was dancing, like that one would have got me good. So yeah, I think as much as like, you know, you want to talk about like Bourne and like how Bourne kind of has multiple identities, right? And like I think the other
Bourne
Bourne that's played
identity.
on this tour like has another identity entirely, and like folks want to hear that like synth build and all that stuff. Like I said, the transition from the tune into this jam was awkward, but the jam that came after, I think, was like pretty satisfying jam.
Yeah.
As far as like, you know, kind of like funk jams go.
You know, and I will say your point on the keyboards. I keep remembering things that I was going to say, and I'm sorry I cut you off again, Brian, but I just want to quickly note Peter's keyboard playing. I will be talking a lot about it when we talk about Asheville. But it seems like he's been shedding the last 6 weeks. You know, his piano work seems really fantastic. I noticed during this first set, his piano and organ doubling, you know, playing organ with one hand, piano with the other, had definitely improved. I think he was doing more with, you know, split hands. There was also some really interesting, I think it was during Indian River, where he had like a bit of a delay on the piano. And it was a really cool effect. But it's cool to hear how his playing continues to evolve so much, you know, and he pushes the boundaries of it.
Similarly, too, in Bourne, there was a period where I wasn't sure if he was playing vintage vibe or if he was playing the Hammond at one point. Like early on, it's like very clear, like later in the jam, that he's playing the vintage vibe, but like there was an effect there that kind of made it confusing for me. And I'm not a keyboard guy, so like I don't really know for sure. But he got multiple
It won't be
sounds.
too hard on you.
Yeah, right. Multiple sounds like out of the keys there, where like it was confusing enough where it was like interesting for the listener, I guess.
Bring back the 3-part Bourne.
I feel like I just learned a bunch of new keyboard terms just in the last 2 minutes. What was that called? Like the
Vintage
doubling?
Doubling. I kind of came up with that. 'Cause I don't know if there's a name.
And then what was the other one? The 2-hand job?
2-hand job.
I didn't say
With
that. I said
while you're working your hips.
Okay.
The 2-hand jive. Yeah, his Peter hips.
The 2-hand jive.
Nice.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything
Set-
else?
And
for
set
this
one?
first set?
Set
No,
two.
I think it shows its versatility. We'll be talking about. There's a couple songs from, especially tomorrow, but the versatility of these new songs where we're seeing them try, you know, not as maybe quote unquote successfully as I would like them to be, or of the general population, whatever you want to say, but they're trying something new, which is good to see. We're taking risks, so can't complain.
Exactly.
And now,
And we will talk about Born Again because it's
The only
song that they played twice in these 4
Yeah,
shows.
there you go.
Okay, second set on paper. This set just looks crazy on paper.
So sexy on paper.
Tumbled
hell yeah.
Creatures, Rosewood Heart, Arrow, and they played an encore.
You love the Steppenwolf encores. Man.
I like the way you feel. Oh, sorry.
You know, it's definitely it's not a bad cover. You know, I would just, you know,
It's No American Woman.
exactly.
Hey, I'm on record. I love the carpet ride wherever it shows up in the set.
It's a great cover, but like, you know, there's a lot more on the table that they didn't play later in the run that could have worked in an encore there. Now, I don't know how close they were to curfew if they only had time for a Magic Carpet Ride. But like, you know,
They did. Well, and we'll talk about that too when we talk about Arrow. But
that was 7 minutes. I mean,
you could throw a butter rum in there.
I think I picked the rum anyway. Yeah.
Anyway, second
let's
set.
not be controversial.
Second set.
Oh, yeah.
The tumble, pretty standard for me. I think it was a solid 17 minutes of tumble. Creatures got into a really, really nice groove. Nothing crazy out of the ordinary or groundbreaking from what you can expect from them here. But I thought it was really great. Again, more fantastic keyboard work from Peter, but just, very solid jam. Rosewood hit into some very typical Rosewood jam themes, kind of hinting it outside the song, but just very typical for what you see from a Rosewood jam these days. And Arrow was great. Peter hit the keys again for that jam. I think, we saw for the first, leg of the year, the winter tour, we saw Peter's guitar playing really standing out in a lot of spots. And it seems like he's making the shift to emphasizing his keyboards. And we'll see what happens once Summer Tour kicks off at the end of May. But it seems like he's kind of shifting modes a little bit. And I think it's really cool to see him kind of giving both sides an equal share, because, last year was a lot about the keys and moving forward with the keys. And then he emphasized guitar again for a bit. So I'm interested to see how that continues to evolve.
4 shows, 2 Festy sets, and no Doc Brown.
I think that's not that out of the
This would
ordinary.
have been the place for it, probably, for sure, first set. But
I would say Asheville would have been. But
Yeah.
let's talk about the second set more. Who's got?
Oh, I mean, I've got lots of thoughts on the second set.
Talk about it.
I think at the time, I wasn't like super stoked on the set. I mean, the tumble's good. It's like a nice, compact rager of a tumble. And, we talk about efficient jams, I think, all the time when we do this podcast. But this was one of those. It didn't go anywhere crazy, but I think, if you were there at that show, you were loving this jam. And I can't stop talking about Peter's guitar tone in tumble jams. He has that perfect Strat tone. I don't know how he achieves it. And it's really only this tune, too, that he does it in.
Well, if you want to learn more about Peter's guitar, very
right.
handy dandy video on the Move Through Stormy Weather YouTube channel.
But his tone in this it's so awesome to focus in on. It's in my opinion, the perfect Strat tone. He doesn't play a Strat, but it is a Strat tone. And I could just listen to him the whole time. And the peaks at the end were really good. It was a shorter tumble relatively. But yeah, that one must have been really great live. Creatures following, we talked about this a little bit earlier. They did every bit of Creatures jam that they could possibly do. I think there was they kind of ran the gamut there. They started with the Kylie kind of transition jam, and then walked away from that almost immediately, and then briefly kind of did the Dark Horse jam that they kind of do sometimes in Creatures. And then walked away from that, and then they kind of settled into that klezmer-ish thing that they can do. They can take a really heavy klezmer turn, but it didn't. And I think that was a pretty solid Creatures. And then Rosewood, I don't know. As far as Rosewoods go, this one wasn't my favorite, but there was a pretty nice peak at the end that they kind of really built up to, and I think that was kind of. If you're going to chop out 2-minute segments of a show, that might have been one of the cooler 2-minute segments of that show. And then Arrow, that was one of the better Berkeley jazz funk fusion things I've heard them ever do. It sounded incredibly Berkeley to me. I don't know. Maybe that's obnoxious to say, but I really enjoyed it. Peter was really, really awesome on the clav for a good stretch of that jam. And then Rick was also sounding really amazing, kind of alternating between rhythm and lead riffs. And I think the only thing that killed that Arrow was that they had to walk away from it and go into the drone jam into the encore, which I think we talked about this earlier, which it was a pretty quick walk away from that jam. And it was good. That was a really, really good jam that they walked away from. But I think time just kind of got in the way.
Yep, time.
Yeah. So is that a? Okay, are you done, Neal? Because you said you had a lot to talk about this.
I think that was it.
I don't want to jump.
I think I said a lot. I think I just
I
talked
also
for
have
2
a
minutes
lot.
straight. It's a record for me.
Okay, cool. Because I have a lot to say about this one too.
Beautiful.
And let me start here. So I feel like this is one of those shows where it kind of gets a bad rap, right? And that's through, what I mean by that is, people online, in our kind of group chat, the things that we were talking about. And so I think a lot of times I can say personally that when I'm listening to these shows or watching these shows in the moment from home, I'm looking at them through a very hypercritical jam centric lens.
Mm-hmm.
We all are.
So, yeah. And so in the moment, I think sometimes, maybe I feel disappointed. Right. But then when I step back, and through re-listening and things like that, you really start to get, then you can judge over time, where you think these things rank or however you do it. But this is a good example of one of those shows where, I agree with what you said, Neal. Tumble is short and sweet, and it's good. It's a good version, right? Rosewood, yeah, you hit the nail on the head there as well. There's a couple minutes there when it was some of the best jamming I thought of the night. I skipped creatures that felt to me like it went for a few minutes at a time where maybe there weren't a lot of ideas being shared and it was a little bit at a loss for creativity. And so maybe they recycled through, like when you say, oh, they went through every creatures jam, kind of felt like they were looking for something and just never quite found it. The last few minutes though, I really like. And then Arrow, similar story, right? And so I guess the only point I want to make is, when we think about, like, when people ask us, oh, why do you like this band so much? People ask me, the shit they ask me, you named your dog after this band? Like what's the deal? You know what I mean? Like, you're really into them. What do you love about it? My first answer is never the sick jams. My first answer is always, oh, these guys have such great songs, and the songwriting's good, the vocals are good, tight musicianship, and definitely jams. And so, when we talk about re-listenability and things like this with shows that we're not at, I think sometimes it's too easy for me to maybe be a little dismissive. And then I start thinking, man, this is one of those shows where if I were there, I'd have been psyched for the second set. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to make that point that, I bet this was a really fun show to be at, and just because maybe it didn't have a groundbreaking jam or like a Sweet 16 jam of the year type jam, that doesn't tell the whole story. And so I know I was a little bit hard on this show at first. I still think it's a great show, and I probably won't do a ton of re-listening. Indian River was the best jam of the night. I yield my time.
Yeah, I think I think I feel similar. I mean, I think what you made some good points, Brian. The thing for me, and what I have to take into account when I talk about how I feel about a show is, with how many shows we have, or how the ability we have now to listen to shows that we want, soundboards, and at a more frequent, a quicker pace, pardon me, after the show, which is great. But it's like, I just don't have time to sometimes go back and listen to some of these shows that can feel a little empty. And I feel the same. I was more critical in the moment. In hindsight, the second set's, solid. Indian River is definitely the one I would go back to. It'll be on my best jams of the year type list, so that's one I might hear again. Some of the second set just felt a little uninspired. Yeah, I like the Rosewood, though. That's one I sort of go back to, probably because I happen to like the song quite a bit. I think it just gets very pretty for a moment. Good peak, and a good little pocket. But overall, just the rest of it, it felt they were settling in, like Ryan said, earlier, longest time off in a while. And I think we can't deny the fact that, or anybody that plays live music, I don't, but it probably takes a moment to kind of get into the groove again with your band. So yeah, it's a good show. All will warm up for the next night, though. Slow Ready. That's the next one. Magic Carpet Ride was
Getting a little ahead of yourself there.
Was typical there, I'd say. So it was unsurprising, made me laugh a little bit, and I'm glad we got a good show the next night.
Take the Magic Carpet Ride over to Asheville.
Yeah, we ready to move on to Asheville here? Asheville did have quite the week of music last week. They had Goose. I think J-Rad played there. Krungbin, Snarky Puppy, a couple other bands like
Neighbor.
That was like a weekend.
Neighbor, and it was all in like 2 days. So it's a blessing and a curse, because then you have to choose between all those shows. But Goose, Asheville, April 29th. First set: Echo of a Rose, Jive 1, Jive Lee, Madhavan, Bob Don, Sinnerman. Pretty standard Echo of a Rose to start. Nothing crazy here. They do finish it all in one with a pretty short jam, which you don't see as often now. Usually it leads into something. Jive 1, just like the one from DC, we see a really, really extended intro here. I was looking at my phone. I was like, wow, it seems really short for how long this intro is. But great organ solo from Peter here. And then this Jive Lee hits. And yeah, Neal, you mentioned that in the Fantasy Goose chat, you were arguing over whether this was even Jive Lee, because they barely played the riff at the beginning and they just jump right into this dark groove. And Peter, this is the first, Peter doesn't usually use synth in this way. The synths usually are they come out in the songs where the synth is in the song, like, Slow Ready, Born, whatever, beginning of 726. But this is one of the only times that we've seen him use the synth in the way he does here. And it's very, very subtle at the beginning. It's hard to hear unless you're listening super closely. But man, it's just so good. Like, kind of a synth bassy kind of thing at the beginning. Then he starts doing more chordal stuff. Really cool reverse delay work on the Vintage Vibe, which, he uses usually like intro of Tumblé. But this Jive Lee seemed way longer than, 13 minutes and 42 seconds to me. And it's just absolutely phenomenal stuff. Might be my new favorite Jive Lee.
Wow.
Damn good. It's a damn good one.
It's really good. And, Jive Lee continues its 2022 comeback. Really the last couple of versions. Nashville was phenomenal. This one, and
Really
hopefully
unique.
we continue up from here. But, really cool. And then Madhavan, again, continuing what I said in Charleston, how Peter's really stepping out on the keys. He takes this jam on the keyboards, and oh my God, I believe this is the first Madhavan where he has used the keys instead of guitar. We've seen in a couple of different songs that he has done this. Creatures before 2021 was always a guitar jam. I don't believe he's taken a tumble jam on the keys yet, but I'm sure it's only a matter of time. But hearing the piano and the organ in this song, and the way he comes in on the organ towards the end there, just really, really good. And the first couple of minutes of this are just great dissonant stuff. And you always love to hear Bob Don and Cinnamon, and just really strong first set.
Cinnamon, the cinnamon. Yeah, this
Bob
is a fun
Don without.
Bob Don without.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's not good enough.
Kev is not happy.
I mean, if they Bob Donned with in this set, who knows? But
it's too powerful.
yeah, I mean, I'll talk a little bit about it. I've been sort of raving about this set, if I'm honest, as you guys can attest to. Just very much like, it's not necessarily until obviously the Jive Lee Madhavan and in the middle of the set is really the meat of it. But just from the start, Echo, very clean, like I said, straightforward. But I think as we could tell, and as the set progressed, very laid back, probably sort of the atmosphere of where they were in Asheville, nice like mountain town, beautiful space. Drive 1, very good as well, but still had sort of a sense of it felt like a little slower and more patient. And then we really saw it with the Jive Lee, like you said. Yeah, that version is super, super unique, super different. So for those who haven't heard it, definitely jump on it. It's one of the better, I think, one of the coolest moments of the year so far. I find myself continually going back to it since this has been released. And it really evoked sort of the patient, slow, the whole jam itself, like we said, was very sort of left field, and Peter, driving it in different ways. Rick was very sort of complimentary to all the work that Peter was doing. I felt listening a lot, sort of didn't really drop into the heavy guitar line and melody. And then, just a wonderful sort of 14 minutes, and felt longer. But one of the cooler Madhavans as well, just very different, showing the variety with their songs. Like you said, Peter playing on the piano and taking some keys into this song, which I like seeing. I'd love to see Tumble, by the way. I heard you say that. But yeah, and then just good solid Bob Don Centerman to finish. But yeah, the middle two tracks, but overall just the whole set itself, I felt was one of the cleaner sets in a while, just front to back, just no sort of misses for me. Very well performed, and a completely different feel from the night before, which I think we were all relieved by. I was like, wow, they sound like a different band. And so, yeah, good things came from it. So,
you know what,
yeah.
D, what I really liked about this show, and kind of going into the second set a little bit, but not too much, the Dripfield teases that were kind of just laced throughout the show just kind of casual listening back, I caught a handful. I caught one in Jive Lee. I caught one towards the end of Madhavan. Obviously, the drip drums that happened in Wisteria before they actually dropped the Dripfield on us towards the end of set 2. I thought it was cool how they kind of just wove that song thematically throughout the show. I thought that was just a really cool thing.
And a hell of a set too.
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, this echo, like I think it doesn't kind of reach the kind of. I think you can get two kinds of echoes, right? You can get the echo that's like super high energy, like the echo that like I really love from Montana, right? And then there's like kind of like ultra experimental echoes that you've kind of seen like peppered throughout winter, right? And this one didn't have that super high energy aspect, but like was still like a really awesome echo and like a hell of a way to kind of start it off. And then, I think you guys have said a lot about Lee. I mean, there was a ton of Dragonfly in that Lee. And it got very Ted for like a while there.
Full line.
Madhavan was like a great Madhavan. I think, a lot of folks who were at that show said that was like a highlight of the show. So if you're standing there like in front of the band, like folks really enjoyed that one. One cool thing about the Madhavan is that if you listen really close on the soundboards, you can hear like the folks in the front row singing the Doug lost his drugs part.
Doug's lost his drugs.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. And it's like, it's definitely worth like listening close into. So like shout out to the folks in the front row.
The Noah Ray fan club.
And Noah and everybody. Yeah, for sure. And then one thing I really enjoyed about this Madhavan was Trevor's bass playing. As it kind of gets like later into the jam, like roughly at about like the 13-minute mark, you kind of get this two-headed attack of Rick and Trevor kind of leading the melody. Like there's not much like pocket bass from Trevor on this one. Like he's playing a lot of notes and it's pushing the melody of the song. It's like kind of Phil Lesh-esque that I don't know if this happens in all Madhavans. Like I need to go back and listen to a bunch to kind of really have like a firm opinion on this. But I really, really enjoyed his bass playing in this one. I thought it was awesome. And then right at the 13:30 mark, I think Peter agreed with me, and you got your first like Peter of the tour there. So if you want to go listen back to
always highlight
Peter being like super stoked, it happens right there at about 13:30 in that Madhavan. And then Bob Don is always welcome in the first set. I think it's a sign of just a heater of a show.
Bring back.
And then Cinderman, kind of ended with like a pretty nice jam. And then again, we keep talking about Peter on the piano. Peter like definitely sounded really good at the end of the Cinderman. And then, Rick's vocals can't be understated here. They're outrageously good. And if you're looking for a first set closer, I mean, hell yeah, this is the one. It just sounds incredible.
Yeah.
It's not quite as the same as what the Philly one and but still good. It's a great song. I like it.
I was just going to say, Neal, I was going to say the same thing actually about Trevor in that Madhavan. And it's so funny because that it was standing out so much to me. And it almost just, I feel like I hear that a lot in a lot of other jams too. And we've mentioned it a little bit before, but sometimes I'm listening to him and I'm just like, it's almost deceiving. I'm like, is he leading this jam? Is he crushing this jam that hard? Or am I just, is this happening all the time? And I'm really high right now or something. You know what I mean? And so
right. More. Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah.
But I think it's crushing. Telling that happens to me so much, Mm-hmm. And so yeah, that was the standout bit for me. Nothing more to say about the lead that you guys didn't already say. The only thing I'll say about Cinderman is, so that was the first cover to get a third play this year, which stood out a little bit more at the time. And then it turns out I'm Writing a Novel got 2 songs later also hit 3 plays. So, but I think that's great that Cinderman's getting those plays. I thought it would have been great if they might have extended this one a little bit further out as the set closer. I think at some point we've got to see this get stretched out a little bit more because it feels like it's such a cool groove. that would lend itself so perfectly to that kind of treatment. So, and so, yeah, Ryan, head us into set 2. That's all I got for set 1.
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, there is writing a novel in it. Set 2 goes Wisteria Lane, writing a novel, Red Bird 726 in Dripfield with a slow ready encore. Wisteria continues to just, I think, just be the MVP of 2022. You know, every version just really, really good. You know, as
Echo
good as good. No, there's not a version of Echo that's better than the best 2 Wisterias.
Top 3.
I've got 2 Echoes better than the second Wisteria.
Okay, well, you know what?
I would say 1 for sure, definitely, maybe 2. Yeah, that's fair.
You all are not as hot on.
How about Wisteria's batting average is 1,000 right now?
For everybody who's listening to this, if you are a reader of the Goose Times, if you are excited about the volume that's coming out on this upcoming summer tour, you'll be very happy to know that I spend a lot of time talking about that DC Wisteria Lane in my recap, and I do mention that, you know, I'm at least aware that there's a lot of attendance bias involved. But
yeah, in case you didn't know, listeners, Ryan was at that show.
I really like that jam.
Yeah.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes.
The number 2 Wisteria.
I don't want to interrupt, but you know,
we talk about the show that we're talking about.
No, but it's an interesting point about talking about Wisteria and like kind of, you know, the quickness with which we might want to say, oh yeah, you know, song of the year so far or whatever. And maybe it is. There's definitely an argument for it. But then when you really start to think about it though, look at all the songs that you could make that argument for, because you could make it for Wisteria. You could easily make it for Echo.
Yeah.
You could make it for Pancakes, Redbird, Rosewood.
I say Rosewood, not as much.
Rosewood, probably not as much. I agree with that.
But like,
But
Pancakes,
it's in the
Bird,
conversation.
Echo, Wisteria, for sure. Yeah, this year has just been so incredible so far.
Rosewood would be in tier 2 with
I bet
All
you-
I Need.
I bet you we give Rockdale another tour, and it'll be up there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But yes,
point being,
Great
like,
point.
it's pretty amazing that, and 2 of those songs are new songs, even more amazing.
Mhm.
But amazing that we could say, you know, at least 4, maybe 5 songs that anybody could make a really good argument for. Man, this is the song that's, you know, most consistently crushing so far this year in, you know, 5, 6, or 7 plays. So that's pretty cool.
Definitely. So Wisteria Jam, really great here. The segue into novel is great. That's the second consecutive great segue into novel that the song has had, which is cool to see. Or third, actually. Yeah, it came out of the Labyrinth Jam in San Francisco, right?
Yeah, the technical difficulties jam,
Yeah,
which was basically just novel. But yeah.
Yes. You know, I think Wisteria definitely could have benefited from a few more minutes of jamming, but still really good in what we got in its 15, 16 minutes. And then this Redbird, you know, I don't know if it was like after we did the Straight Burden video thing that the song just got better, but like, I don't know. I just am absolutely in love with this song. I just love this song.
I think it made us better.
Yeah, honestly.
It's made me a better person.
Yeah,
Made me a better person.
Since I've lived the life of the bird. You can actually hear it though in like even on the boards. You can
People are
hear
singing.
people singing the song.
Yeah,
which
that's
is awesome.
People are straight
And
burning.
then Ben is flapping his wings, isn't he? Like on the I feel on the video. So, anyways, I'm sorry, but it just makes me giddy too.
Everybody,
And then there's also someone in the crowd. Like I think when they go into the chorus the first time, you hear someone in the crowd just yell like, "Time for a bird to fly!"
When it's time, man.
Which
When
is
it's
incredible.
time.
It's like everybody's so pumped for it. You know, it is
such
super
a happy
cool.
song. Yeah,
It's awesome, and the sing along is great. I think that's going to just continue to get better. And when I listened to this earlier when I was in the car, I very audibly could hear the crowd singing along in the background, and it made me very happy. And
It's just so cool that we made this song what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah, this is us. You know, we did this.
It's all D.
It's all
Straight
all-
burden.
Great burden. So this jam, though, like, I mentioned before we started recording that this might be my new GOAT, Redbird. I know there's some disagreement among us, which, always healthy when we don't always have the same opinion. I don't want to lock that in just yet. whether it dethrones Pittsburgh or not, but I think at the very least it is my second ranked Redbird. I really absolutely love the jam here. I think it goes in a slightly more unique direction. Again, more really great synth work from Peter here during that build. And that end, that peak just makes me so happy.
Goosebumps.
Goosebumps. And I love it. And then, they go into 726. I think 726 and Your Ocean are both my favorite, ballad
Soft landing
pads.
Yeah, the best landing pads. Yeah.
I would say the best landing pad is still Moby, but my favorite ballad landing pads are 726 and Your Ocean. But 726 works really, really well here and then carries over into a nice primal banger, Dripfield. This song is just awesome.
Teased all show,
and then they finally play
and they
it.
give it to us.
And then I really love the way that they for the second night in a row they do that kind of drone jam thing where they leave
non-core
loops going as they leave the stage and then come back on. And then I really love the way that Slow Ready emerges out of that.
Yep.
I thought that was a cool way to utilize it, and Slow Ready is a great encore. But this really strong second set, really strong show.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose we should talk about the bird before we talk about anything.
When it's time.
But the first, there's I think two distinct parts of this jam, at least as I hear it. It kind of drops into a very mellow jam with more excellent piano playing by Peter. My notes were gentle beds of piano everywhere.
Love that you're.
Yeah, no, I'm just going to use the hell out of that. Yeah, for sure. And then there was a brief stop again on a Dragonfly theme, and then the drums just kind of kick into Dripfield, and then you kind of get a really wet bass sound from Trevor, which sounded absolutely amazing.
Yeah, the liquid.
And then you get this whole section of Rick playing the Dragonfly kind of motif on guitar, and then the drums playing Dripfield at the same time.
Oh.
And oh man, that's absolutely freaking incredible. And then Peter is kind of just hammering away at the piano, kind of laying down a rhythm behind it.
Primal.
And it's so good. And that's not even the best part of this jam. They do a full pause and reset, and then that's when the Peter synth build starts. And then that's where this bird goes completely off the rails. It's so ridiculously good. I mean, this tune is one of their better tunes right now, and this is a fine example of it. I don't want to say it's the best version ever. It's certainly different than other versions. Yeah, it's
a very
amazing.
good one,
very, very good one. But I want to back this up a little bit and talk about "I'm Writing a Novel." That song, well, it's probably not my favorite song. Before I heard Goose cover it, is turning into one of their best covers. I
love it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they do it so well. They absolutely fucking nailed this song. And the first guitar solo that Rick does, he spent some time thinking about this tune and playing that guitar solo, because that guitar solo absolutely rips, that first guitar solo. And then his vocals on it are incredible. And, you don't want to talk about I'm Writing a Novel as a high point of the set, but man, that is such a perfect cover to drop into the set. Mm. It is wonderful. And I implore anybody to go back and listen to that, and then kind of focus in on Rick's solo in that too.
It's got a little Back on the Train vibe too.
Oh man, it's just so good.
I thought
so good.
in Cleveland when they went into it out of Tumble, I turned to my dad and I was like, I know they're not playing Back on the Train, but they're playing Back on the Train.
Yeah. Yeah. And the tune is the tune, right? Yeah. That's what it is.
It is good. It is good. I felt there was it in the moment. It seemed a bit awkward for me. I thought, yeah, just the way that Wisteria kind of settled. Great version. Like you guys said, yeah, it's arguably the worst, quote unquote, one of the versions so far this year, which isn't saying much at all because it's still very, very good.
Are you ranking novels?
No, Wisteria, I said.
Oh, okay.
I rank novels.
Of course you do. You have a
Love
spreadsheet
Goose.
for that.
You have
Love
to, yeah.
Goose,
There's
Joey.
the 3 this year, the max played, but no, great. But I think writing novels sounds very good. The whole set is just that you guys basically took the words out of my mouth. The Redbird, though, like Neal said, and the Dragonfly sort of motifs and teases, themes, whatever you want to call them. I think as we've seen now, and we continued to see in the next couple of shows too. And Neal, you've pointed it out to me, of course, but like it's just a space that Rick clearly feels comfortable playing right now. It's like maybe they won't even ever do the Dragonfly complete, song again. Hopefully, I hope they do, but it's just a space they always find now, and it's very pretty. One could say maybe push it out, but just a sick set. I love that this show is very, very clean, front to back, doesn't really have any holes, and then to finish off, one of my favorite birds, gives me goosebumps every time.
DU started a movement, man. Straight bird.
Yeah, dude, it's so fun. It makes me really happy for the community as a whole, though. Too, I think, as jokes aside from everybody singing it, it's just like it's awesome, right? It's cool.
Optimistic as fuck, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I love it. That's all I got to say. I'm all on board with this show. It's definitely one of my favorites of the year so far. Still not willing to hasty rank it, but it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. I haven't done that hasty ranking yet. So, but it'll be interesting to see where it fits in.
And by the time you rank it won't be hasty.
It's a nice. It's a nice laid back. It has a nice laid back vibe throughout. Some great jams.
It's like one I'll put on always. I feel like it's just an easy show to listen to.
Great set list construction. Yeah, it's really good. And honestly, if I wanted to look at it and try to find something to be critical about, there's not much. It would be that, like I said earlier, I'd throw a little bit more mustard at the end of Centerman to make that a real big set closer, like more of an exclamation point on that set, which I felt like that set maybe deserved.
Yeah,
and then I also like many of you were saying, I love, I'm writing a novel as a cover. I think it's a really strong cover for them. I don't know if that's where I'd put it. That probably wouldn't be my first choice placement. But like you said, I mean, it's a killer set, and everybody's talked about the Wisteria. Yep, every version's been so strong. This one's really good. Another awesome Redbird, 726, just pure beauty right there, and then dropping into the drip, and that's a phenomenal set closer. So that's perfect placement. If we're, if I'm saying something about writing a novel, maybe not being where I would place it, that's perfect placement for Dripfield. I mean, I feel like set 2 closer, that might be one of the best spots for it. I don't know. And then classic slow ready encore. I mean, that's
give the people what they want.
Yeah. And finished off that laid back vibe that was kind of prevalent throughout the night. You know what I mean? So it was a fitting end, but yeah, obviously this was the best show of the 4. It's just going to be a matter of, where does it rank up against some of the, because we that winter tour was pretty strong. So it'll be interesting to see, does it crack the top 10, top 5? Who knows?
In the moment, I felt like a note that I made in the moment was laid back but locked in for the show. It's definitely a show that we talked about this pre-recording, that this is a show that we'd recommend probably to people that were getting into Goose for the first time, because it's not like straight out like 22, 25-minute jams on necessarily anything, but just well-executed songs from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely a show that I'll revisit probably after we're done recording tonight.
Yep.
I'm listening to it right now in one ear.
He's just bringing the energy into our recording.
He's birding.
He's fucking
birding in one ear,
podcasting
in the other.
When it's
all right, should we do next night?
Yes. So Sweetwater 420 Fest, a very large crowd. Was it 25,000 people? The latest controversy in the Goose community.
Yeah.
Joel Cummins of Humphreys McGee commented on how it was remarkable that the entire audience left during Humphrey's second set, which was crazy.
It allowed them a lot of space to play.
It's proof right there.
That's it. The whole.
I heard it
empty.
I heard it could have been, I mean, Coach said 25. I think that was conservative. I heard it could have been up to 35, 37.
38 is what I heard.
Yeah.
38,000.
Let's just be real. It was a huge crowd. Okay.
It was a
Huge.
big crowd. It was a sizable crowd. But pretty cool to see Goose on the secondary stage of the festival get that kind of draw. But moving into the set list, I think I definitely, and I think some of you guys too, every song that they played was like, of course they're playing this song. Why didn't I pick it on my fantasy?
Oh, I did, Ryan.
I had that. Oh, you did pick it on your fantasies, but
I picked them all.
Yes.
You did.
Neal had a good fantasy night. I did not.
I did. I'm just gonna pat myself on the back right now before you continue.
Oh.
It's like actively happening right now.
Go ahead. So is this the first hot tea opener ever? Has it opened a show before? B?
That's rare, right?
Oh shoot.
Jive.
I feel like you guys are asking me a question.
Wait,
Hold on, sorry. Let me pause. Asheville Redbird.
Oh, okay.
Jive Google.
Jive Google. Mr. Spreadsheet, is this the first hot tea opener ever?
So it's funny. I should know that.
You've been exposed.
I think it is.
He's a fraud.
I think it is.
it definitely is.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to talk about the intro for a minute?
I was going to say, can we? Thank you, because I was going to say the same thing. Like, I wanted to do that before we get into the music. We have got to talk about this intro. Go ahead, Neal.
You have to.
Give me your thoughts first.
Oh shit! I'll go on record. Holy shit, man! That intro was just bad.
Made me proud.
And like, yeah, I don't think that like there was like any kind of like hardcore Goose fan that heard that intro and was just like
didn't cringe.
Yes, somebody finally said it. Like nobody thought that, and like I think the entirety of Twitter and all other kind of jam band social spaces like kind of were like screw Goose fans. Like how dare they say such things, and like, man, what an awful intro! Like,
what? I would
that
just
is
like
not
to,
what anybody actually thinks about Goose.
I would just like to preface this though by saying like, I like Ari Fink, great guy in my experience.
Oh, here we go.
Talking with him, he's a very nice guy. But the intro was a lot.
Yeah, and like I'm not saying like he's a terrible dude for saying what he said, and like I'm sure it's like really easy to arrive at those opinions and say those things. I don't know who the other person on stage was that was saying, I think, the most cringeworthy things that were to be said.
Definitely. As they were, and let's not fail to mention that who followed them.
Okay, all right, yeah. Who played after Goose?
I have no idea.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
But in any case, like I just like would love to be above board on that one. That like as somebody who like truly loves the band and loves their music and has dedicated a lot of my time to like listening to the music, like that's not the way I feel.
Yes.
I just really like their music, and like I hope that like somehow in the universe of the jam band discourse that like people understand that like
The jam
people
band.
who are truly Goose fans like aren't going out there and saying those things.
Yes. And in all seriousness too, hopefully everybody understands that Goose doesn't. Goose, to me, it's obvious. Goose doesn't have any control over what those people come up on the stage and say at a festival like that. You know what I mean? It's out of their hands. And I know there was also kind of the question. Well, why would Goose like include that on the official recording?
Right.
And I kind of feel like, I don't know. I mean, would it be disingenuous to cut that though? Also, it's part of the show. It's, you know what I mean? I almost felt like there's no right answer there. You know what I mean? And so I think leaving it in there, you kind of have to.
And also, you're not obligated to listen to it.
Yeah. And from the band's perspective, I mean, if these people are saying nice things about you, like, okay, well, that's not a bad thing, obviously. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those things that maybe kind of, does it do more harm than good? Maybe with some people, like they hear stuff. I don't know. There's a lot of haters, and maybe that feeds the hate to like hear such over the top because they basically were saying, I mean, I'd have to go back and listen to it again to get it verbatim, but I mean, weren't they pretty much saying like Goose is the fastest growing band in the history of the universe, and
They're the
Yeah.
next best thing, and this. And
yeah,
Well,
it was
like,
probably just a little bit too much.
Goose is
I
the
think it would.
sliced bread
I
of
think
music.
I think it would have served the band better to have toned that down and maybe just
Just had like a coach like, what's going on, Sweetwater? Get loud.
yeah,
Who's
right.
the best
That would have been
Are you
better.
loud?
That would have been
Are
way
you
better.
sleeping,
Yeah,
Jojo?
for sure. Like, I mean, I'll say this.
Show me
like,
Showwater.
Yeah, right. Like, just
We love you, Coach.
imagine if, for example, Sugar Bush 95, somebody came on stage to introduce Fish and said like, this is going to be the next greatest band like ever, and like the whole world would have like just thrown up.
Yeah, but I would have been like, "You goddamn right, they're the fucking."
Well, yeah.
next
So what am I?
greatest
I was
band."
there.
Okay.
But like, yeah.
We get it. You were at
Uh,
shows.
In any case,
Should we talk
shall
about
we
the
move
music?
on to the set?
How about that
Yeah, we
rock
can do
tail?
that.
Music. Okay.
How about that
So-
Rockdale?
So we did mention there was a hot tea opener. I think we can, take this one kind of in chunks. Rockdale Hunger Site Moby. This Rockdale, really cool for its, kind of standardish 16-minute runtime. Great little jam in the middle there, kind of a little bit different than we've seen normally. I do think so. They've been playing Rockdale a lot slower this year. I understand why, I think, but I would like and I hope that they eventually will go back to playing it at the kind of more upbeat tempo that they did in 2021. The Mission version is kind of my benchmark for that. Hunger Site on its third outing, just really, really great song. Still,
Hanging on.
nice catchy riffs and lyrics, and I think it's going to continue to be a jam vehicle. And I wouldn't be surprised if we have 3 or 4 versions of it on the bracket for this year. And then leading into Moby, you know how I feel about Moby. This was the perfect song to drop on a jam band festival crowd, full of people who may not be that familiar with the band. Like, if you're kind of like listening to this and you're like, oh, it's Goose, okay, whatever. Moby's going to make you, pay attention to what's going on. Like that's good stuff right there.
Well, I think like we said too, especially for people at a festival, right? If you're walking by,
Yeah.
and that's like the first thing you hear and notice,
Like-
you're like, whoa.
Oh,
Yeah.
bass bomb.
Yeah.
But it's the cool thing about the tea that opens that show is that Peter really dives into the tea,
Yeah.
and really starts kind of like ripping from the get go, which he hasn't really done over the last year or so. I think that was like one of my complaints about the tea from Belly Up, where like Peter kind of fakes like he's gonna like get into it, and then like kind of later gets into really like kind of ripping on the vintage vibe for that. But that's a hell of a way to start a show, and
Yeah.
like an amazing way to start a festival set. I mean, overall, I think as far as festival sets go, folks have like complaints about like whether or not this would like have energy and things like that. And I think this is like a near perfectly composed festival set.
Hell of a
As
set.
far as I'm concerned, like Rockdale is a standard Rockdale, right?
But a standard
and it
Rockdale
still,
is a really good Rockdale.
Indeed.
still slaps. Standard Rockdale slaps.
I'd take standard Rockdale over quite a few.
Hell yeah. So that was an amazing choice for this show. I picked that on my fantasy goose because I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
And then the pancakes. I think there's a lot that can be said about that pancakes, but like I don't want to dive into that because I think we're going to talk a little bit about that pancakes, like all of us. And
Stacks
then
on stacks.
yeah, and then the choice of kind of dropping in like California Magic and Silver Rising was perfect. And I think you can make a complaint that like it kind of like made the show slow. It made folks like kind of subdued and whatever. But if you're playing a festival set, like you want Rick to sing, right?
Yeah.
Like that's like the thing that's going to like bring people into this band. And like Rick sung and sounded amazing in those 2 tunes.
And Silver Rising really also showcases the songwriting. Like that is
Indeed.
such a good song.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I can't imagine a festival set without it. Actually, in terms of this kind of festival set, So I love that those were included, and I'm surprised that that's a criticism of this set.
Mhm.
I really am.
Always looking to find holes, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And the
No,
mail sack.
I think that is the mail sack, my show. I think fun opening. I don't have a ton to say otherwise. It's funny I realized it in the moment, of course, once Hunger Site was played again. But this is another example of when we had 4 of the first 5 songs that if you look at and we go back to Dripfield, Slow Ready, we forgot to mention that is what's on the album. So it'll be curious to see if that's a progression of sort of the drone off. And then you had Hot Tea, which is also on Dripfield, which I always fail to realize. But when you tie it into Hunger Site, a lot of lyrical references the same, like weapons, soldier, war, that Rick sort of tied together. And it's funny when I hear like Hot Tea on it in isolation, I don't put it with those songs, but maybe packaging them like this, I didn't even realize it until right now. And then you have Rockdale, which is another new song off another album, right? So they're showcasing, and then Moby off TED Tapes. They're showcasing a lot of newer, relevant material here. But a song like Hot Tea is so old, and I think of it, and it was like, well, that's a damn good opener. So, yeah, I think just so that's my piece at the beginning, and then to put in Moby, just a great sort of first half of the set. Yeah.
So D, now that you're saying it right now, I'm staring at the set list and like, holy crap! Like every single one of these songs is like a newer-ish song outside of Yeti.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. California Magic too, which we didn't
Yeah,
even.
the whole show.
Yeah, and I think just in terms of energy, it was like Hot Tea. Here's some energy. Riding it up a little bit, soft landing with the Moby, and then the energy coming back up again with Yeti all through Empress.
Yep.
Great festival set.
Peaks and valleys for sure.
Yeah, man. Great.
But in a
great
good
festival
way.
set.
Well
Yeah.
executed. Yeah. B,
Indeed.
you got something to say? Do you want to bridge us into this stack?
Yeah, they clearly, came out with intent, and I wonder if after Ari's intro, did we audible? I don't know. Did we see a printed set list of this?
I think so.
Yes, we
Probably.
did.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, there was one missing
song?
tune from that set list, which we didn't talk about, which
What-
would have
what
been
was
awesome
it?
in this set. Fish in the Sea.
Fish in
Oh,
the
that's
Sea.
right.
Yeah,
Fish in
good
the
call.
sea. Fish in the
Good
sea.
call, man.
Okay. So
Another
that's
new
good.
thing.
It's good that they crafted the set list and they weren't thrown off by the intro and they stuck with it. So that's good. That's good. Yeah, but it's a fire set list. I mean, nobody can argue with that. I think everybody's always thinking, festival set. Okay, so we got to, obviously want to play our great songs and, we want to do some jamming, but not too much jamming,
No covers either.
Yeah, we want to be selective about covers if we even do any. There's all these choices to make, and I felt like they navigated that really well here. I think this is about at 420 Fest. I mean, obviously it's your kind of it's your demographic. So now it's just
what demographic?
These are fans that like jam music, So let's break out our great songs. Let's break out the stuff that we do well, and then the big jam was obviously Pancakes. And I think that's a good point, that it's a lot of new stuff. And I also loved seeing California Magic. I love that song. I love that they have the confidence to drop that here. Same with Silver Rising. I agree. Neal. I mean, don't really get the criticism if there was much there. And the California Magic, by the way, it's probably silly at this point to say that this was the GOAT CA Magic, but it frankly, it probably is. And they did that nice little walk up in the last chorus. They added a little bit of something new. There was a little bit extra fire, I thought, to Rick's solo.
Extra mustard.
Super strong version. And everything else I think was fairly standard, if you will, but strong versions of everything. But from a jam perspective, I think Pancakes was really where we got the standout jam. And, there's two really big jams here. The first jam I thought was phenomenal, just really cool stuff, nice build, nice peak. And then, when they settled that after the peak of that first jam, I thought how they settled that down and transitioned into kind of the, just kind of the landing kind of chill area before they started to make their way into the second jam was really well done. It was a really nice transition. So yeah, I mean, it's probably still, a mid stack, cake for me, but
Definitely mid.
but strong. I mean, it was good. It highlighted that show for me. And then, when Peter says, we've got one more for you. I mean, if you're not guessing Empress at that point,
I
it
would
was
say
the tune.
Arcadia. I would say Arcadia too.
Yeah, I was thinking Arcadia myself.
Oh, is Empress? Yeah, no,
Arcadia is for the mainstream festivals. Empress was for the 420 crowd.
And like we said, if we take a look at the set as a whole, if I look at this right, we don't have that. I mean, Hot Tea, Arcadia are two of your biggest songs, though, too. And anyways, whatever. Sorry.
I'm sorry you didn't know Empress was coming.
Well, we did. We heard Rick counting it off. I did. We said, well, here's Empress.
And Rick, and pro tip for those of you who watch, Rick on stage, as he's counting an Empress, he turns around and starts doing this like little bounce thing towards Ben, and that's how you know.
Are there people among us that did not choose Empress for fantasy? We all had it, right?
I would assume.
I hope so.
But
Neal definitely did.
That first peak in Pancakes, that first peak in Pancakes was somewhat magical. If this is not like a top of the stack, Pancakes. If we're gonna say it like a mid stack, it's not a mids Pancakes, right? Like this is not mids.
It's not a beaster. It's not a beaster of a pancake.
No beaster Pancakes.
No, it's definitely.
I mean, that first peak is incredible, and awesome that they dropped that on a festival crowd. I mean, they really committed to that Pancakes jam, and yeah, man, hell of a jam, absolutely hell of a jam. And then the Empress that closed it out was a good Empress. Empress like has its spot, and you can close out a set with Empress anytime. It sounds amazing.
And I really I want to talk about this Empress a little bit. Not least because of the clav, but I think this is now the gold standard for I guess quote unquote standard Empress. Hitting that 14-minute mark. I think
14,
before
15,
this, this, my go-to would have been the Suwannee version. But this one now, like from the get-go, you've got that Trevor bass solo, and he does that thing that he's been doing as of late, where in his solo he starts driving the jam into that minor key groove, and then they just latch onto that, and it just gets dirty. Rick lays into that rhythm playing, Peter hops on the clav, just starts tearing it up. That section is just incredible. And as much as I obviously am going to highlight Peter's clav playing, it's Trevor's bass playing there that really makes that section. At first leading it and then just pushing underneath. And then obviously they rip into that peak. And then, it's relatively concise as well. I think we've spoken about how, we'd love a good 14-minute Empress every once in a while. It doesn't always have to be 20, 23 minutes.
Yep.
It really does not.
And so I think playing more Empresses in this fashion as, an encore or a set closer, love to see more of it. But I think this version was really, really great. And I think I'm going to go back to it a lot.
Perfect tune for it.
Yeah. Yep. Great bookend, bookend song, front end or back end.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing, Ryan, when you started talking about that, because, we have talked about that just like in terms of like the efficiency of jams, and for some of these songs like Empress and Creatures, maybe Tumble to a lesser degree, is there an opportunity there to maybe bring efficiency into some of those jams that maybe they don't all have to go 18, 20 minutes if there's not, maybe a great idea to explore, or in this case, I think it was probably more time management, but I think, you make the good point that these are great songs, and it's okay. It's okay that the Asheville Echo opener was 11 minutes. Like that's okay. You know what I mean? We're just not going to get a 20-minute version of everything all the time. And so I agree. This was a really good, concise, just powerful, high energy version. The crowd, it's a crowd pleaser, and no reason to not see more of that. And for the band, sometimes I wonder, like, does the band maybe feel feel like they have to jam some of this stuff out, every time. And so maybe it's a good sign to see stuff like this, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then our final show of the run, the Beale Street Music Festival in Memphis on May 1st. I think we don't really need to go through every song of this set. I think there's just a couple bits and pieces we can pull out. But I think, obviously it's not something I, as, a super fan of the band, am going to be compelled to go back and re-listen to a ton, if at all. But for somebody who doesn't know Goose, playing to a crowd at a festival like Beale Street, that's not a jam band festival, you don't have, there are obviously some established Goose fans in the crowd who went to the festival to see them or are at the festival. But for the most part, you're playing to people who don't know who you are, and you can hear Peter does his "We're the Goose from Connecticut" in his intro. And, the longest song of the set is a 12-minute "So Ready." I think this serves the purpose really, really well. Somebody on Twitter mentioned, it reminds a lot of like a 2018 or 2019 Goose set. A lot of shorter songs playing hits.
Was that Neal?
Was it Neal? I think it was someone else, but I agree with it. And I'm very surprised at the presence of Green River and Electric Avenue here. I figured they'd go the all originals route for this show again. But, I think we could definitely talk about Born and kind of go into the evolution of that song a little bit more. I've been thinking about this a lot the past couple of days and kind of where I stand on the different versions that have cropped up and how I feel about the different parts of the songs. We have the song proper. We've got the synth build that was present for the first few versions. We've got that kind of laid back piano major key jam that's in this version. And I believe Nashville and Royal Oak. And then we've got that back end funky jam that we talked about earlier in Charleston. In my mind, I feel like that funk jam doesn't fit the tone of the song. I don't know how unpopular this opinion is, probably unpopular, but in my head, I'm kind of envisioning a Born where you get the song, the synth build, and then that leads into that major key piano jam. And that's kind of it. I think they've come out with so many amazing jam vehicles, over the last few months even. And I think Born, I think it would work better, not having that open-ended jam on the back and sticking to kind of like that more ballady space. But that's just me,
I think we're all still on the Seattle version is probably the preferable version of Born at this point. I would love to see them go back to that and feel that one out more, but again, I'm not playing the music, so whatever they feel comfortable with is all good, but that's definitely a pleasant one to listen to and go back to often.
I'm with you, Ryan. I like this Born. This Born feels like a Born that could slide into a set here and there, and it doesn't have to be a centerpiece of a set. You can just come out there and play this tune, which is a beautiful tune. And, it doesn't have to do more than just be Born, right? You can slap a funk jam on the end of it and then have it be kind of something more than just the song itself in a set. And I don't think it's necessary. I think if you're talking about the tunes they played in this particular set, this is one of my favorites, one of two. And Born does have an identity crisis right now, right?
Yes.
They don't know what the hell they want to do with this tune. And there's so many different ways it can be played at this point. And if this is the one they land on, I wouldn't be mad. I think this is a great way to play this song.
I'm with Neal here.
Let's be clear. I feel like there's two pieces that we're talking about. Does it need to have the open-ended funk jam, or let's just say the open-ended jam, right? That's part number one, which obviously Beale Street doesn't have that, and that's okay. But then there's the slow build piece, and I feel like that's essential.
Yeah.
I feel like without that, the song doesn't have the emotional powerfulness on me at least.
And maybe that's not what they were going for at the.
Well, and that's okay, but
yeah,
I just. Like I said, I just feel like there's two pieces there. I think short is okay, but I still think it's better with the slow build jam, and they can go out. They can go without the 2001 jam or the lengthy Seattle, piano driven jam. They can leave that off, and I'd be fine with the short version, provided it has that slow build. I think that I'm just saying that's an essential part for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I'd also love to see them use this piano jam here in this Beal one, that kind of jam. You go song, slow build into this, and then if you want to have a jam, you could jam out of this. I think.
And the great news is, like we mentioned earlier, Born was the only repeat.
Yes.
Of these 4 shows. So, Identity Crisis or not, they want to play it. So.
And
that's
a great
good.
song.
I'm not hating it out. Like they can play it any way they want to play it.
Yep.
Yeah, keep experimenting. Keep experimenting, but just include the slow build jam, and then we're good.
There you go.
And then jive.
Keep playing it, but
because I do get a little bit tight. Yeah, I think the 2001 stuff.
It's a little easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can we talk about "Lead the Way" from the show?
Sure. I'm surprised that actually that wasn't the second song that I thought you were talking about, but please continue.
Oh, really? I mean, this "Lead the Way" is like really, really good. I think every time they play this tune, it's wonderful. And there's a solid stretch in this where they really take it to like a pretty amazingly beautiful exploratory space in the very, very short period of time they played this tune. And like, I love this tune here. And like, if you listen close to the boards, I think they might have lost the crowd a little bit on this one, but they didn't lose me. I mean, it was really, out of all the things they played, this one might have grabbed me the most. Mm-hmm. And it's such a great tune. I wish they played it more. They used to play it a whole lot more, and now they don't. And it was a hell of a tune to drop on a festival set. I think this one was kind of like a perfect little cookie for folks like us who like kind of like devour this stuff.
It's it's just a great song. I mean,
right.
Lyrically,
I wasn't I wasn't probably incredibly surprised to see it here. It's a short version, though. I mean, it is a short version, but the quote I love out of that piece, Neal, was, "They may have lost the crowd, but they didn't lose me."
Yeah, right.
They didn't lose me.
Very cute.
They'll never lose me.
The cookie thing,
right. Well, that's fair.
The cookie thing was cute.
Green River. they may have lost me. I don't know. I mean, was it me?
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good tune.
So,
that tune.
Electric Avenue, by the way, joined "I'm Writing a Novel" and "Sinnerman" as the third cover to be played 3 times. And so I think that's another just a little interesting tidbit, when I think about covers, and, when I look at the list of covers that they've played this year, and, so those 3 songs stand out as being played 3 times. Right. And there's a whole list of covers that have been played once. And so it does start to get interesting. Like, why is this cover being played 3 times as many as maybe the average cover? And so,
where is the way it is?
Well, now in the streets.
Well, yeah, it's on
violence.
one play.
Now in the streets there is violence and lots of work to be done.
Deep, man.
Okay. Yeah.
So a little bit of an interesting choice. I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a tie-in to Memphis with Electric Avenue, or is Eddie Grant from Memphis? I don't know. There could be something tying into that show, but I just can't help but look at the list of covers that are kind of in play, so to speak, that have been played this year, and there's just a ton that are sitting on one play, and for some reason Electric Avenue gets 3 plays, and I just wonder about that. That's all.
It's baloney. It is.
I'm not trying to be a hater.
It is baloney, though. How about that? I think so.
I know we're not going to get state of the art.
You guys got to check out the lyrics for Electric Avenue, and this is all going to kind of just go together. So the album is called "Killer on a Rampage" for Eddie Grant, And then you have this other lyric in here, working so hard like a soldier. I mean, just Dripfield everywhere. Anyway.
Man, it's all
Are we
connected.
ready? Are we ready for our mail sack segment?
Sack.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So thank you to everybody who responded on Twitter today. We appreciate all of you. If you would like to participate, follow us at AAT Goose Pod on Twitter and Instagram. We do send out a tweet the morning of the day that we record, asking for people to send in favorite moments, any questions. But we're going to pick through a few of them right now. Give you a little spot here. Kicking off our mail sack segment, we've got a response from Blaze of Shame at Blaze of Shame. Thank you very much. Do we know who writes the band's set lists / how they put them together? Saw the EGT interview with Coach where he said he writes them out, but wasn't sure if he chooses the songs himself. Assume not. This run was interesting from that POV, given the varying audiences / objectives. So in my experience, when I saw the set list being written out, it is Rick, Peter, and Coach kind of come up with the songs together, mostly Rick and Peter, and then Coach actually physically writes them out on the sheets of paper that they take on stage with them. And, I think there were a lot of, obviously, they had 2 headlining shows to kick off the run, and then 2 festival sets of very different festivals. I think at Sweetwater, they definitely went for the approach of, we're going to play some of our more jammy tunes. We're going to give a little bit more space to all of the songs. And then they saved a lot of their quote unquote hits, for the Beale Street Festival. Like, stuff you'd think of as the hits: Drive, Lead the Way, Turned Clouds, All I Need, So Ready, Arcadia, stuff like classic Goose songs from the catalog. Obviously, there are a lot that were played earlier in the tour, but you can't leave them all for a 1-hour slot at a festival. But it's an interesting point about the set lists evolving. I think we're going to continue to see unusual placements of songs as the year goes on, and I'm excited to see how that continues to develop. Danny, do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, Brian. Good lead on the sack. Next up, I have one from Matt at Hot Snakes 81. He says, Dr. Darkness, Rick pedal jams are nar sauce. Amen, brother. That's
Eloquent. So eloquent.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess true.
D for darkness.
Yes.
So I agree. Matt, thanks for the mail sack. We appreciate the message, and keep it nar. Kev, how about you, man?
Well, thanks for the toss, brother. I can't really find the thread that we're talking in, so I'm just going to take what I see here from Always Almost There pod response from a familiar face. Micah Akin asks, who's your favorite Goose sibling? And of course we answered Elise, right? Yes. Micah's also pretty awesome, and we appreciate her interactions with our Goose community, leading our Goose community here on Twitter, and also promoting us through her tweets when she can. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I really hope her flooding situation has been resolved. I was concerned. I just hope everything's okay.
Yeah, it sounds really shitty. So Tyler Hensley asks, what's each of your all's favorite moment from a Goose show you were at? And I got a good one, because
we'll go around.
There's we should all do this. There's a singular moment for me that kind of like changed everything, I think. And that was my brother and I went to South Farms to see Goose at Halloween, which, of course, got curveballed. And then we went back a week later or so. And then they played Slow Ready. And Slow Ready is on my hierarchy of Goose tunes that I love. It's not really way high up there, but the laser Slow Ready that happened was, one of the most remarkable live music moments I think I've ever seen. And, I've said a lot of hyperbolic things about that moment, about I've seen some pretty incredible live music things in terms of the jam community. I was there for the Harry Hood Glow Stick Jam, and like that one, like absolutely was one of the more incredible moments I've ever seen. And this one, like it's not quite there, not even close to there, but like it's up there in that conversation. It absolutely, like, it's hard to put into words like how amazing the vibe was in that place. Like sitting on an edge of a hill in Northwest Connecticut, which is where I grew up, and then like having like all of this happen at once. And I think a whole bunch of us turned, and actually instead of cheering the band, we just turned towards Getty and cheered Getty.
Love that.
And it was such an incredible experience. And I think as long as I go to Goose shows, it's going to take a lot to kind of catch up to like how I think we all felt in the moment in the crowd there. So that's mine.
We're always chasing that feeling, Neal.
Yeah, man.
Nice
it was incredible.
Nice. I got to say, my favorite moment out of the 6 shows that I've seen so far, it's kind of a toss-up between two. On one hand, you've got at my first show at Goosemas, getting to experience, Straight Burden with Neal. That was very, very special.
Yeah.
And everybody at Mohegan. And the second one, being the DC Wisteria, being in the room for that was just mind-blowing. D, what about you?
I'd say my favorite moment, off the cuff, without thinking much, Legend Valley, the second part of Madhavan out of Moby, was one of the like most intense moments of music I'd say that I've seen with them, and yeah, pretty special.
Yeah.
Kevin, what about you? All-time fave.
Oh man, I don't know if I can narrow it down. If I'm vibing out like the way it is at Eau Claire, like those 2 nights, just man, I can't narrow it down. For me, it's the camaraderie of those 6 shows over that 7 days. The 2 that happened in Eau Claire, the 2 that happened in Montana, and then coming home here to Denver. Those are the ones for me.
Yep, good run.
B, why don't you round us out and take us into the final mail sack?
So, yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to echo Kev. 6-night run, Eau Claire, Montana, Denver. What's awesome about those 6 shows is that I saw all 6 of them with Kev, and I saw 4 of them with D, and then I saw 4 of them with Neal, even though we weren't totally hanging the whole time. He had a separate crew that he was balling with.
His own gong gang.
Yeah, dude. I mean, we were like his second gong gang at that point.
We weren't pals yet. Then.
We were
but it's all good.
B team.
And yeah, I mean, I will always remember. I mean, those Eau Claire and Livingston especially. I mean, those were just such special shows. And yeah, definitely, I think about the way it is. I can picture clearly those moments, of us hanging out, being super psyched about that. And then up in Montana for, the great jams there, the All I Need and the Wisteria. I mean, just really great times. And almost, I'd almost say that because, musically, then yeah, I'd probably say Mission, Ballroom Arcadia, would be up there. But my first thoughts, to be honest, are just about, hanging with just all the great people, you know what I mean? And not just the people on this pod, but, all the other awesome people that, we're just constantly running into and hanging out with. And I mean, I'm so stoked for Dylan and Red Rocks. And Ryan was kind of teasing me earlier. I haven't been to any shows this year and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, that
you're almost 48, man.
I know, dude. It's time's running out really for me, and so I think that's why I'm looking forward to these shows that much more. So that's all I'll say about that one. And if you want me to move on, through the mail sack,
finish up that mail sack.
Yeah. There's a couple in here. So the whole show was great. But I enjoyed the Asheville, Jively, and Ash Bird. Some jam exploration in the prior night's Born might be worth discussing. That's from finger gun, pew pew. And I would say, yeah, I agree.
That person's totally right.
Yeah, I would say that's a great comment, and I totally agree. And let me do one more. Please talk about how Moby is the best song. It's Goose's What's the Use? I Got a Fever, and the only prescription is more Moby. That's from
Jesus Christ, Ryan.
At Ryan Storm.
Yeah.
It echoes my
That's a
sentiment.
burner
very
account.
much.
SANITYJT.
Sanity Josh Thornton.
Yeah, guys, you found my burner.
SANITYJT from 6 hours ago. And I would say true on that one as well.
Well, thank you. You know, I appreciate, everybody who has sat through an hour and a half of 4 shows.
I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm so sorry. Can I do one more?
Oh, yes, you do. You did say you had one more thing to talk about.
This is from our good buddy Rock at Strangest Design.
Yes.
Look, there's nothing for me to read. It's just an image. It's an animated image of
a GIF,
what appears to be
a GIF?
Luigi eating a pancake and then floating up into the sky. And I think that what Rock is really telling us all here is that, Luigi is a metaphor for our spirit as our spirit rises during the performance of every version of Pancakes. And so again, I think I would just probably say true on this one.
Spirit
People are on
pancake.
fire tonight.
Fantastic. So anyway, thank you for everybody who has listened to us talk about 4 shows for an hour and a half.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. If there's mothers out there, happy Mother's Day.
Definitely.
It's mostly dudes.
Yeah,
they have moms.
Based on the analytics I get, we're
hey,
about
yeah,
90%.
I just reminded a
male.
bunch of dudes to buy flowers
I
for
was just
their
going
mom.
to say, yeah, dudes, there's your reminder.
Well, now more than ever, appreciate the women in your life.
Yes.
Indeed.
So, but I incorrectly, you think I'd learn, but I figured we'd be an hour maximum on this recording, but I don't know why, knowing the 5 of us.
Charleston.
Way to go, rookie.
And feel free to leave a comment on Twitter if you felt like we could have gone longer.
Yes, we would love more.
If we didn't talk about Charleston,
because I don't think we should be cutting it short if it's
Yes.
the content that the people want.
Yes.
That's all I'm saying.
It's true.
More Charleston.
Let us know if you want to hear us ramble for longer. I think like Goose. This is our I believe our longest break since we started the podcast. But
no string problems here.
Well, thank you everybody for listening. We will see you again in a few weeks. We will be splitting the summer tour into some smaller chunks for recap episodes, so they're a little bit more digestible, but we'll end up taking 3 shows and talking about them for 2 hours anyway. But it just means you're getting more detail on every show, so it's all good.
It's quality analysis, really.
Exactly. Don't forget, obviously, if there's any comments or commentary you want to share with us, please reach out to us on social media at AAT Goose Pod. We love Goose. We assume you do too if you're still listening. Thank
Grab
you
a
very
shirt,
much.
represent.
Yes.
Be kind to each other.
All of the above. Have a great time at shows this summer, everybody, no matter who you're seeing. And we will see you again soon. Thanks for listening.
Cheers.
Y'all.
Bye.